June 6, 1944. Dawn breaks over the coast of Normandy. Inside the wolf's lair, deep in the Prussian forests, Adolf Hitler sleeps. His generals hesitate. Reports flood in. Allied paratroopers behind the lines. Naval bombardment at 5 beaches. Thousands of vessels offshore. But no one wakes the Führer because they believe what Berlin's intelligence has told them for months. Normandy is a feint. The real invasion will come at Calais. By the time Hitler opens his eyes, 156,000 Allied soldiers are already ashore, and the lie that won the war had just become the truth. The room is dim. Maps cover every surface. France, Belgium, the Channel coast. Pins mark divisions, red for threat, blue for reserves. In the corner, a radio crackles with static. Field reports, panicked voices, requests for reinforcements. Hitler enters slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. Officers stand. No one speaks first. He looks at the map. Normandy, 5 invasion points. But his eyes drift north to Calais to the 15th Army, his most powerful force standing idle. This is a diversion. Someone says Patton's army hasn't moved. Calais is still the target. Hitler nods. He trusts the intelligence. He trusts Garbo, the Spanish double agent whose reports have been flawless for 2 years. But outside on the beaches of Omaha and Utah and Gold, men are dying by the hundreds. And the Atlantic Wall, the fortress that was supposed to hold forever, is cracking. The Führer doesn't know it yet. But the war is already over. For months, Berlin had celebrated its intelligence triumph. Agent Garbo, codename Alaric, was their crown jewel, a Spanish businessman, anti-communist, loyal to the Reich. His network spanned Britain. Dock workers in Liverpool, military clerks in Scotland, even a source inside the War Office. His reports were precise, detailed, unshakable. In April, Garbo confirmed it. The Allies were massing a massive force in southeastern England. General George Patton commanded the 1st U.S. Army Group. 150,000 men, 1,600 tanks, entire ghost divisions. Their target, Pakala, the shortest route to Germany, the logical strike. Normandy, a decoy, a secondary front to draw German reserves away before the real blow. Berlin believed him. The au pair believed him. Hitler believed him. So the 15th Army stayed put. 19 divisions, 150,000 men dug in along the Belgian and northern French coast, waiting for Patton. On June 6th, when the landings began, the high command barely flinched. Rommel was away visiting his wife for her birthday. Rundstedt delayed response. Hitler slept. Even when the reports grew worse, heavy resistance, but the Allies are advancing. No one panicked because Garbo had sent another message the night before. Normandy is the diversion. Calais is next. Do not move the reserves. They obeyed. And in that obedience, the Third Reich signed its death warrant. By noon, the numbers began to tell a different story. Sector reports June 6, 1944. Omaha Beach, 34,000 American troops ashore. Casualties, 2,400. But the bluffs are taken. Utah Beach, 23,000 men landed. Link up with airborne divisions complete. Gold Juno soared. British and Canadian forces 75,000 strong. Bio roads secured. Airborne drops. 23,000 paratroopers behind German lines. Bridges captured. Roads blocked. Total Allied forces committed in the first 12 hours. 156,000 men. Naval support offshore 7,000 vessels. 195,700 personnel. 11,590 aircraft providing air cover. And still, the 15th Army did not move, because the intelligence said this is not the main attack. But inside the operations rooms, doubt crept and a junior officer points at the map. Mein Führer, the scale of the landings. Patton has not moved. Someone interrupts. His army group is still in England. Then where are his tanks? Silence. Another report arrives. Decoded, typed, handed to Hitler. Allied bombing targets over the past 3 months. Calais railway hubs, 12 major strikes. Normandy railway hubs, 37 major strikes. Seine bridges destroyed, 18 out of 24. Road networks in Normandy, systematic devastation. The pattern was there, had been there for months, but they had ignored it because Garbo said it was deception. Then the logistics began to arrive. Typed in cold columns, Allied industrial output January-May 1944. Sherman's 11,000, aircraft 27,000, landing craft 31,000, trucks 170,000. Compared to German production in the same period, Panzer's 3,200 aircraft, 9,500 trucks, 26,000. One general stares at the numbers. His voice is quiet. They didn't need to deceive us. They could have landed anywhere. Another report from the field, Panzer Lair Division mobilization order received 14:30 June 6th. Expected arrival at Normandy front 18 hours. Actual arrival June 9th, 3 days late. Reason? Allied air supremacy. Every road bombed, every bridge destroyed. Tanks forced to travel at night through forests under camouflage. Of 182 tanks that began the journey, 134 arrived. Operational. The rest destroyed from the air before they ever saw battle. Hitler looks at the map again. The pins have not moved. Calais is still guarded. The 15th Army still waits, but Normandy is bleeding and the reinforcements are not arriving. At 1600, a priority message from Rommel reaches the Wolf's Lair. If the enemy once gets a firm footing on land, our position will be catastrophic. We must throw them back into the sea before nightfall. It is already past nightfall and they are still ashore. The Führer's hands grip the edge of the table. "Release the reserves," he says. "Which reserves mine, Führer? To Normandy or to Normandy?" A pause, and Calais Hitler's jaw tightens. He does not answer because the answer is becoming clear and it is unthinkable. June 9th, 1944. 3 days after the landings, the Allies have not been pushed back. They have expanded. The beachheads, 5 separate zones on June 6th, are now linked, a continuous front 50 miles wide, 10 meters deep in places. More ships arrive every hour. More tanks, more men. And still, the 15th Army stands at Calais. Inside the Reich Chancellery, a different kind of silence has settled. Not the silence of confidence, the silence of realization. An ABV officer enters with a decoded intercept, British radio traffic, routine supply coordination, nothing unusual except one detail. Patton's name mentioned in past tense, previously assigned, no longer attached. The officer's hand trembles as he places the paper on the desk. They disbanded his army group. Hitler looks up slowly. What? The first U.S. Army group. It was never real. The room goes cold. Another officer speaks, voice barely above a whisper. The tanks we tracked in Kent, inflatable. The landing craft at Do Thy Plywood and Canvas. The radio traffic. Actors reading scripts. Someone laughs. Not from humor, from shock. Garbo. No one answers at first, then a voice from the back. An intelligence analyst who has been silent until now. Garbo sent 47 reports between January and June. Every single one confirmed Calais as the primary target. Everyone cited independent sources, dock workers, clerks, officers, and we never verified a single source. We never met any of them. We only had Garbo's word. The analyst places a folder on the table, opens it. On June 5th, the night before the invasion, Garbo sent an urgent message. Normandy is the diversion. Calais remains the objective. Do not move the 15th Army. He looks up. It arrived at 3 o'clock, 3 hours before the landings. We received it at 8 o'clock, 5 hours late. Why? Because no one was on duty to decode it at 3 o'clock in the morning. A bitter pause. Garbo even complained about the delay in his next message. Said if we'd acted faster, we could have stopped them. Hitler's face is unreadable, but his hands have stopped moving. The analyst continues. He gave us everything we wanted to hear, confirmed every assumption we already believed, never contradicted us, never asked for payment, just fed us certainty. Where is he now? Unknown, but British intelligence awarded him an Iron Cross in absentia. The words hang in the air. An Iron Cross from Berlin and likely a medal from London as well. Jodl, Hitler's chief of operations, finally speaks. His voice is flat, emotionless. Mein Führer Patton was never coming to Calais. Hitler stares at the map, at the pins still clustered in the north, at the 19 divisions that could have made a difference, should have made a difference, but didn't, because one man, one Spanish clerk working out of a London apartment, had convinced the entire German high command to stand still while the war slipped away. Not through force, through belief. Hitler's voice, when it comes, is quiet. How long have they been lying to us? Jodl hesitates, then answers with the only truth left. From the beginning. The Führer closes his eyes. Not might be lost. Was lost. The deception did not begin on June 6th. It began 2 years earlier in 1942 in Lisbon. Juan Pujol Garcia, a Spanish chicken farmer with no military training, no intelligence experience, no connections, walked into the British embassy and offered to spy for the Allies. They rejected him 3 times. So he went to the Germans instead, and they accepted. He invented an entire network, 27 sub-agents, all fictional. A Portuguese businessman in Liverpool, a Welsh fascist in Swansea, a Venezuelan student in Glasgow. He wrote reports from Lisbon using a travel guide and old magazines. He described troop movements he imagined, convoys he invented, bases that didn't exist. And Berlin loved him. They paid him, praised him, gave him the code name Arabelle. When British intelligence finally realized what he'd done, they brought him to London, gave him a new code name, Garbo, and turned him into the most valuable weapon of the war. The mechanics of the trap were elegant. First, give them truth. In 1943, Garbo reported the Allied invasion of North Africa before it happened. Berlin received the message after the landings had begun. A delay in transmission, but the accuracy was undeniable. Hitler personally commended him. Second, build dependency. For 18 months, Garbo sent a steady stream of intelligence, some true, some false, all plausible. His network grew. His reports became required reading at the highest levels. The Abare stopped questioning him, started protecting him. Third, exploit belief. By 1944, German intelligence didn't just trust Garbo. They needed him. Their own reconnaissance had collapsed. Allied air superiority made observation impossible. Agents in Britain were captured or turned. Garbo was all they had left. So when he said Kalala, they believed Kalala, not because the evidence supported it, but because they had no other source to contradict him. The strategic consequences were catastrophic. The 15th Army, 150,000 men, the strongest force in Western Europe, remained at Pas-de-Calais until July 25th, 7 weeks after D-Day. By the time they were released, the Allies had landed 1 million men, established a front 60 miles wide, captured Cherbourg, and its deep water poured. The window to push them back into the sea had closed forever, but the paralysis went deeper than troop placement. Logistics. Every gallon of fuel, every tank round, every replacement soldier sent to Normandy came at the expense of Calais. Rommel begged for reinforcements. He received fractions because the high command still feared the real invasion. Air power. The Luftwaffe held back reserves, waited for Patton's Phantom Army to cross the Channel. By the time they committed fully, Allied fighters had established total air dominance. Psychology. The German command structure fractured. Rommel argued for immediate counterattack. Rundstedt urged caution. Hitler wavered. No one trusted their own judgment anymore because Garbo's intelligence had always been right until it wasn't. One intelligence officer after the war would describe it simply. We didn't lose because we were deceived. We lost because we wanted to be deceived. Garbo told us what we already believed, and we built our entire strategy around a fantasy. The trap wasn't the lie. The trap was the truth they couldn't see, even when it was killing them. By June 10th, 5 days after the landings, German commanders knew Normandy was the main invasion. But the 15th Army still didn't move because orders from Berlin said, hold for Calais. And by the time those orders changed, the war had already turned. The war did not end on June 6th, 1944. It would grind on for 11 more months. Berlin would not fall until May 1945. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. The cost of belief. By August 1944, the Allies had broken out of Normandy. Paris was liberated. The Wehrmacht was in full retreat. The 15th Army, when it finally engaged, was shattered in weeks. The divisions that could have stopped the invasion on the beaches were destroyed in the hedge and forests of France. 150,000 men gone. Not because they fought poorly, because they fought too late. Rommel, who had warned of catastrophe, was forced to commit suicide in October, implicated in a plot against Hitler. Rundstedt was dismissed, reinstated, dismissed again, and Hitler he retreated deeper into his bunker, surrounded by maps that no longer reflected reality, issuing orders to divisions that no longer existed. The man who won the war never fired a shot. Juan Pujol Garcia Garbo remained in London throughout the invasion, writing reports, inventing sources, feeding Berlin hope. On June 9th, the same day Hitler realized the truth, Garbo sent another message. I regret the delay in my warning of June 5th. Had you acted on my intelligence immediately, the Normandy diversion could have been crushed. Berlin responded with gratitude and an Iron Cross. He received the MBE from King George V the same year, the only person in history decorated by both sides in the same war. After 1945, he disappeared, faked his own death, lived quietly in Venezuela until the 1980s, when historians finally found him. In an interview near the end of his life, he was asked how he felt about deceiving an entire nation. He paused, then said simply, I didn't deceive them. They deceived themselves. I just let them. The lesson was carved into history. Wars are not only won with guns and tanks and ships, they are won with belief. And on June 6, 1944, Germany believed the wrong thing. Not because the evidence was perfect, but because the lie was comfortable. By the time Hitler opened his eyes that morning, 156,000 Allied soldiers were already ashore, and the greatest deception operation in history had already succeeded. Not because it was clever, but because it told them exactly what they wanted to hear. In war, the most dangerous enemy is not the one at the gates, it's the one inside your own mind.